So in the mid to late 90s, TVR Tuscan Championship was one of, if not the most competitive and certainly one of the busiest one-weight championships in the UK. This car was built for the 99 season by the TVR factory in Blackpool for my dad to race for the next 2 years. He was runner-up in the series, multiple race winner in it, and we've ended up with it back 19 years later in the same livery, which is quite crazy. And that kind of came about, I think, over Christmas. My dad was watching old season reviews, as you do, loads of time to kill, and watch some old racing, and he texted me and said, "Oh, I'd fancy trying to get that back." And I love buying cars, so that was all I needed to hear.
I'd always fancied owning the car. Again, it's one of those you think that would be nice when perhaps you're not doing as much racing. If you've got a car that you wanted to go and do an odd event with, or do some track days, or take to Goodwood for a blast round, this was the one.
The championship was so competitive back then. It was full grids. You used to have qualifying races to get through to the final. There's people like Jamie Campbell-Walter doing it, Ian Flux, Bobby Verdon, Ray Michael Caine, Martin Short, loads and loads of good people doing it.
Now, in the second year, it was my mate Michael Caine beat me to the championship, and it was nip and tuck all year long, but he just managed to get the championship from us. But fantastic cars to drive.
And they're quick cars, you know, they're V8 engine, around 800 kilos, 450 horsepower. They sound amazing. But I remember my dad said the final time he got out of it, in a way, he was quite glad that was the last race, because they were so quick, and their fiberglass body, quite flimsy and not probably the strongest things. But the racing they used to put on was a real show and a real spectacle, and to say was probably the most competitive one-weight series in the UK at that time.
In the meantime, the battle for second place continues. McKellar, Jordan and Hindley turning their way down towards Abbey.
There's quite a few detail bits that he did differently to a lot of the others, just because of the attention to detail we like to think we have, just to try and make it as neat and tidy as possible. And I know when that car came out in the championship, it kind of raised the bar of the preparation and the attention to detail. So probably the tricky thing we'll have is, because as times move on, we'd probably do it differently now than we did back then. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge to build it to exactly as it was back in 1999. I used to always watch, and obviously back then I was only little and used to wish I was driving, so to now have it here and hopefully get out and drive it myself.
And about 2 years ago, my mate Michael Caine bought this car. So he phoned me one day and said, "You never guess what I've bought?" He said, "I've bought your old car back," because he'd been trying to buy his own car and couldn't buy it. The chap wouldn't sell it at the time. So he bought this, and he's constantly ribbed me about it ever since, and so, you know, it's still sat in the garage, not doing anything with it. And by a strange twist of fate, I managed at the end of last year to buy his old car. So I phoned him up and said, "Right, now you've got my car, I've got your car. Obviously there's got to be a deal to be done here." So that's what we've done. So we've actually got Michael's car as well, that's out in storage at the minute. So we're going to rebuild his for him as well, and rebuild this one.
Any car that you kind of, I remember as a kid, we used to go along as a family and watch it. So to now have it back and have it back exactly as it was, is quite cool. Any car with memories is nice to have back, and if it sits in the corner of the workshop looking nice and we get out a couple of times a year in it and have fun, just me and him driving it, then that's great. It's money well spent, in my opinion. We're good friends with Michael Caine, so we'll have to at some point take them on the same day, to, even if it's not a race, to see who and which one is the quickest, because I'd say this was the quickest car and driver package back then, and probably reliability let it down not to take it to the championship. So I'm sure Michael Caine would disagree, but that's what I think on it. So yeah, at some point when we've got them both all done, we'll take them and see who comes out on top 19 years later.